Hi guys, I'm Uvin Hettiarachchi. I'm an owner of Skylark Aviation. We are an aviation company based in Sri Lanka, mainly dealing in chartered flights and joyrides, and this is our hangar. Now, the first thing to note is in Sri Lanka, according to laws and regulations, anyone who owns an aircraft must park it and maintain it at a recognized aircraft hangar at a recognized airport.
Our hangar is located at Katakuranda Airport, and the hangar has its own regulations in place for emergencies, fire safety tools and testing.
And as we come onto the hangar floor, there is the star of the show. This is our Robinson R44. Fun fact, this was the first brand new helicopter to be bought into Sri Lanka. And we had the privilege of being there as it came off the line in Torrance in 2013. Now, this particular aircraft has another variation called the Raven 2, and Robinson actually makes two other types of helicopters as well, the R22 and the R66. Then now the R44 Raven 2 and the Clipper 2, the biggest difference are the floats. This Clipper 2 does have the floats, and the floats are in case of an emergency water landing. And talking about the skids right here, those are the things that the floats are located in. The wheels are actually used to position the aircraft for maintenance and to actually take it out onto the airfield to take off and go about its business. Now, the Robinson R44 Clipper 2 has a Lycoming IO540 engine right here.
Lycoming IO540 is a naturally aspirated, direct drive, horizontally opposed 6-cylinder engine with fuel injection. It generates around 260 horsepower and has a gross weight capability of 1,134 kilograms. It can carry 373 kilograms with standard fuel and has a range of 550 kilometers.
Now, the other type of engines in helicopters are called turbine engines. Turbine engines have a higher load capability, but they come at a higher cost. Now, this particular machine was brought down to do joyrides, and to do joyrides, the piston engines are the best ones because they have a quick turnaround time. And our company was the first to introduce joyrides to Sri Lanka as well.
The quick turnaround time, the low fuel consumption, the panoramic cabin, the leather seats, the low noise, everything is almost tailor-made for a joyride.
Now, this is an incredibly practical aircraft. The avionics are simply and effectively laid out, making it that much easier for the pilot. Piloting is a demanding job regardless, but it makes it that much easier when it's simple like this. Now, the main reason we started an aviation company is to share this experience with as many people as possible in the community. My parents were passionate about aviation, and in turn I was as well. And I don't think we could have just owned an aircraft for the sake of owning one and kept it locked in a hangar somewhere like the States or even here without sharing this particular experience of being in a cockpit.
Aviation is an expensive industry. First off, aircrafts are expensive. Even our helicopter, the R44, which is a relatively affordable model, was more than $500,000 brand new. We have about 1,000 hours on this machine, and the current market price for this is around $300,000. For this model, the overhaul time is 2,200 hours or 12 years. Aircrafts come due on calendar years or number of hours operated. If our aircrafts come due of overhaul, it'll be worth around $100,000.
And an overhaul of an aircraft involves completely taking it apart and going through all components, checking for any damages and making the necessary repairs, so the aircraft itself will be up to code to be airworthy. Now, it is an extensive and an expensive process, and it is a huge determining factor in the price of an aircraft. Now, that being said, if you own an aircraft, maintenance is going to be a huge component.
Maintenance is relatively easy in the R44. That being said, it does require expert maintenance under regulations because failure in air can result in catastrophe. That doesn't mean helicopters are unsafe. There are some fail-safe features.
Say for instance, something like the engine fails. In that instance, pilot does have a remedy. A pilot can actually change the pitch of the aircraft. So the pitch is the orientation of the aircraft so that the main rotor can spin. Now, the main rotor and the tail rotor of the helicopter are connected through a system, a mechanical system. So when one rotates, the other rotates as well. So when the pilot changes the pitch, the main rotor will go into what is called an auto rotation, and the blades will spin, and the pilot can make a controlled descent and land safely. Now, of course, if something like one of the rotors goes, it is an uncontrolled descent or a crash. In that case, it will be catastrophic. So that's why there are a lot of life-limited components in aircrafts, and there are a lot of regulated maintenance. And in the same fashion, we have to have a lot of spares in hand just in case one of those spares are needed. And to do all of this, we need the correct tools.
Our senior technician is in charge of maintaining and logging tools and spares. They need to be readily accessible whenever we need them. I'm a mechanical engineer myself, so it was really important for me to get some top-of-the-line tools for the hangar, and we have some really cool stuff we get to play with apart from the essentials.
So talking about cool, the aviation industry is about to be shaken up with some cool new players. eVTOLs are coming in. Now, eVTOLs are the closest competitor to helicopters, and eVTOLs are electrical vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. And they're going to be coming in pretty soon and competing with helicopters in terms of air taxis and joyrides with all the advantages they provide as electrical vehicles. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Right now we're in the tool room. The room next door is the lunch room or the break room, and it's a pretty interesting room as well. It is actually the place where most of us spend majority of the time in. You have a good view of the hangar floor, you're plugged into what's going on, and there's food. All right, so right next to the lunchroom is the med bay, and away from med bay is the offices of the engineering manager and manager flight operations. So manager engineering is responsible for bringing down the spares for the helicopter and to maintain the maintenance schedule of the aircraft. In our case, the flight operation manager actually coordinates with the CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka, on procedures, and also coordinates with clients and locations to make sure flight plans are followed. Now, right next to those officers are the stores of the spares.
It really is important to have spares in hand just in case of emergency. You need to be prepared for the parts you need to switch out during maintenance, and being able to predict what parts might become an issue is very important, because while aviation deals with fast machines, it is really slow when it comes to everything else.
So moving right upstairs, it's the flight control center. Now the flight control center is where the radio operator stays in. The radio operator is the bridge between the ground and the aircraft. Also, they maintain a constant communication with the control tower of the airfield to inform them about the flight plans. Right next door is the hangar balcony. When the races happen at Katakurunda, this hangar is right next to the starting line and almost becomes a grandstand.
Also upstairs is the library and the offices of the quality manager, who maintains manuals and coordinates activities required for quality standards, and there's also finally my office.
Now let's talk a little bit about the business of aviation. In aviation, one of the biggest costs involved is depreciation. We talked a little bit about overhaul. All aircrafts have an overhaul lifespan, and that comes due. So it doesn't matter how much you fly, if you fly every day or if you keep your aircraft in a pristine museum condition for the duration of its life, it's gonna depreciate. That being said, if you want to survive in this industry, you have to find a sweet spot for the number of hours you log in for the aircraft for a particular time span, because that means you don't get overwhelmed with the costs involved, nor do you struggle with the lack of revenue. So that is very important.
A lot of the other costs involved in the industry are also fixed costs, whether it be insurance, airport hangar lot rentals, staff salaries. If you want the best, you pay for the best. And of course, there are operating costs. Fuel. Right now, the price of AV gas has skyrocketed from where it was a few years ago.
If you do operate cautiously, you can turn a profit in this industry. Yes, the costs involved are high, but relatively the revenues are pretty high as well. So that there is a margin to turn a profit in. For a while, actually, I think before the pandemic, we were the only airline in this country who were turning profit. And to do this, you have to have a great understanding of who your customer is. You have to offer the right service at the right price, at the right time, at the right location.
In our case, we pioneered helicopter joyrides in Sri Lanka. Our joyride operation was mainly based out of one of the most scenic locations in the island in Bentota in the southern coast, which is amazing when viewed from the top. And we have the best rates because of the combination of the hub model we use and the machine we use.
Even when it comes to large airlines, it's the same deal. You have to understand the market. Now, in an airline, what matters is people in seats, right? So, say for instance, you can predict a popular destination by doing your market research for an upcoming season. If you don't cater directly to that destination, you can lean on your partnerships as an airline and put together an attractive package that will be up on your site and get that booking to your airline. In that way, you can actually make some money. Now, of course, with all those plans laid in place, there are things like pandemics hitting that will affect your businesses. In our case, when the pandemic hit, it was a tough time. We went on hiatus because we were mainly operating in the sectors of passenger cargo and tourism. Those sectors were nil during the pandemic, so we went on hiatus. And you do that as a responsible company, because even if you aren't in danger because you are not vulnerable, there may be people who are around you who are. So you take that responsibility on and do the right thing. And doing the right thing as a business at that point was to actually provide for our employees. So we dipped into our savings and we made sure our employees were taken care of. And then due to certain mismanagement and very bad decisions, Sri Lanka actually went into a deep dive. There was an economic crisis, and then there was a fuel crisis, and all those things meant that this company was going to be on hiatus for a real long time. Fortunately, in our case, we were able to shift our focus and our personnel to our other businesses. My parents are the founders and owners of Ritchie Group and its subsidiaries, and in my case, I have my engineering firm Vira, my e-commerce platform Brad, and of course I get involved in certain aspects of Ritchie Group. And of course I am also functioning as a television presenter and news anchor, but that's something completely separate.
So that meant we could afford to keep the operation on hiatus and keep the helicopter preserved. It's only now that things are slowly becoming stable, so it's only now that we are starting to get back into it.
So that's what we are up to right now. Actually hope you enjoyed this presentation and actually enjoyed the tour. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. We'll try to get back to you. We'll do a Q&A. So tune in next time. Until then, cheers.